In this video, we are going to talk about sketching, and I will also give you 3 tips that will help you as you try to learn this important skill. The purpose of sketching is to develop a plan for your artwork. It's like writing a rough draft for a story. It's a mess when you start out, but by the time you have a rough draft completed, you have solved most of the major problems and you have answered most of the basic questions for your story. Obviously, when we make a plan for something, it should be a good plan, as good as possible. And the sketching process is a journey from bad to good. And in sketching, the way you get from bad to good is with lots and lots of lines. The more mileage you put on your pencil, the closer you will get to your goal. Here's another way to look at it. When you're tuning a musical instrument like a guitar, you have to play a bunch of wrong notes to get the right note. That's part of the process. The wrong notes give you the information that you need to get to the right notes. If the pitch is too low, now you know to tune it to a higher pitch. If the pitch is too high, now you know to tune it to a lower pitch. But if you don't have that information, you have no idea what direction to go. It's the same thing with the sketching process. Every line you make gives you the information you need to get the right lines in the right places. If a line's too low, now you know to move it up. If a line is too high, now you know to move it down. But if you don't have that information, you have no idea what direction to go. I challenge you to take your creative ability to another level. Don't just have an idea, learn to develop an idea by sketching it out and tuning it up. Don't just make a composition, learn to develop a composition by sketching it out and tuning it up. And don't just make a drawing, learn to develop an accurate drawing by sketching it out and tuning it up. If you learn how to sketch and you put the required mileage on your pencil, you will find that you are traveling very quickly towards your creative goals. Now, here are 3 tips that will help you as you are learning to sketch. Tip number 1, use smooth, flowing, light lines when you are sketching. There is a tendency that we all have when we are drawing to do the caterpillar crawl. We do this because we feel like we have more control this way, and we are making little corrections as we move along across the page. Corrections are important, but remember, when you're sketching, you need information. These caterpillar lines won't give you any information. You have no idea if you're going in the right direction, and you have no idea if you are even in the right spot. But smooth, flowing, complete lines will give you that information. When you're sketching, get into the habit of drawing your lines all at once, and then correcting the entire line all at once. You can practice with an exercise like this. Simply make a big shape with a flowing line and go over the line several times. Then divide the shape into smaller pieces with smooth, flowing lines. When you finish, try a different shape. Tip number 2, learn to simplify. When you're sketching, focus on the basic shapes and angles, not the details. Imagine trying to decorate a cake before you bake the cake. Or imagine trying to put the roofing and siding on a house before the framework is done. It won't work. Details must come last. And if you try to do the details first, it will make a mess of everything. Anything you draw can be simplified into a few basic shapes and angles. No matter what you're drawing, look for angles and look for basic shapes like triangles, ovals, circles, and squares. Tip number 3, learn to look at what you're drawing. This seems obvious, but the reality is most people don't look very closely at the objects that they are drawing. We just sort of glance at it. This is in our nature. When we scan what we see in front of us, our brains are programmed to ignore most of what we see and to focus on the things that are most important. There's just too much information to process. But when we are drawing something from reference, we have to try to reverse that habit. We need to look closer and look longer until we see all of the information that is there. Here's a trick to help you fact check everything that you think you see. The trick is to compare. Is this bus big or small? The answer is, it depends. We don't know if it's big or small until we compare it to something. Next to a child, this bus is very large. But next to the Empire State Building, it's quite small. When you are sketching, take time to make comparisons. If you were drawing a paintbrush like this, you would ask yourself, how wide is this brush compared to the length? How long are the bristles compared to the handle? Here's another example. Have you ever noticed how strange everything looks upside down? That's because we haven't really looked at anything very closely. We just sort of scan everything and ignore it for the most part. But when something's upside down, we start to see things that we haven't noticed before. We start to really analyze the shape of a mouth, for example, or the shape of an eye, and we start to suddenly notice the true size of a nose. Drawing something upside down is actually a great way to practice seeing. Remember, the purpose of sketching is to develop a plan for your artwork. It's a mess when you start out, and the sketching process should be a journey from bad to good. Every line you make gives you the information you need to get the right lines in the right places, and your goal is to tune up your drawing all along the way. The more mileage you put on your pencil, the closer you'll get to your ultimate goal.